Wow, this is really weird. I'm not used to showing myself on screen, so this just kind of feels wrong. Not gonna lie to you guys. But you know what? Up to this point, I've done a really good job, in my opinion, of keeping my personal life private. And in all honesty, I intend to keep it that way and to keep doing that. However, right now I feel like I'm in a position where I need to open up to you guys, and I feel like you deserve a little bit of background before I tell you what I'm about to tell you. First things first, hi, I'm Sean. I'm the guy you've been listening to talk about cartoons on YouTube for the last 2 years now. So, a little bit about me. I'm 28. I have an amazing wife who I've been with for 13 years now. We have been married for 9 years now, and we have two kids together who, as you would imagine, keep us very, very busy. So, for the last 2 years now, I've been doing YouTube in the background of my main job. I am a 911 dispatcher. I dispatch for police, fire, medical, and it's honestly the most stressful job that I've ever had in my life. I find myself constantly making life or death decisions on a daily basis, and my agency operates a little different than most. I don't just call take, I don't just handle radios, I don't just dispatch. We do it all at once. In my job, it's a regular occurrence to be on the phone with a caller while on the radio with one of the fire guys at the same time, all the meanwhile telling an officer where to go all at once. And honestly, it can get really overwhelming and it requires a tremendous amount of multitasking. I'm in a position where it's my job to talk to people on what could possibly be the absolute worst day of their life. I've handled phone and radio traffic on everything from massive structure fires to large fights with weapons involved. I've talked more people through CPR than I can count, and I've heard the sound of somebody taking their last breath on this earth multiple times. It's a job that thankfully has been rewarding, and it gives me a sense of purpose, that's for sure. However, it's taken a massive toll on my mental health over these last 2 years. I gotta be honest with you guys. Now, as rewarding as this career path has been, I honestly am in a point where I really want to leave it behind. I need to take care of my mental health, and I really want to live a long life with my wife and kids. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to see them graduate. I want to see them get married someday. Or maybe they don't get married. Who knows? That's their choice. But either way, I want to be there, and I don't want my mental health to stand in the way from me being able to achieve that. Now, my biggest issue with leaving this job, to be honest, is where I live. I live in the beautiful state of Washington, where I've lived since 1999, and honestly, I love it here. But over the years, this state has gotten way too expensive to live in. To put it blunt, my family can't survive living here anymore. And ultimately, our plan is to move away. Hopefully, we want to move to Middle America, somewhere maybe a little more on the rural side where we can get a bigger house at a decent price. I really, really want to be able to focus on YouTube full time instead of having to juggle another job that's rapidly destroying my mental health. But in order to do that, honestly, I need your guys' help. However, I do have something really cool that I can offer in return. As of today, I'm officially launching my Patreon. If you're seeing this video, then it's live right now. And I can tell you guys, you're definitely not going to want to miss this. First things first, I'm going to be offering a series of videos on there that I haven't really came up with like an official name for yet. But think of it kind of like Dusk Till Dawn After Dark. It'll be kind of, in a way, more adult-centered topics that I can't really talk about so easily here on YouTube, chock full of all sorts of colorful language and vulgar humor as well. Now, until further notice, those videos are going to be Patreon exclusive. However, that's not all that's going to be offered, though. Patreon supporters are going to be able to see my videos a day or two before the general public will on YouTube. And again, those perks are going to come with each tier that's available here. Then, on top of that, there's going to be some higher tiers available with some other perks, such as like getting a shout out at the end of my video, things along those lines. I have an exclusive offer available for my first 40 supporters on Patreon. I've been dipping my toes just a little bit in the pool of maybe getting some merch started, and so far I have about 40 stickers made that I designed myself. Each sticker is also going to come with a handwritten personalized note from me as well. Right here are the different designs that I have available for you guys, and regardless of which tier you sign up for, you're going to get a random sticker when you sign up. Again, I only have 40 stickers in total, so keep that in mind. It's only for the first 40 supporters. And the sticker you get is going to be completely random unless you sign up for the $20 tier. The people who sign up for that tier are going to get a exclusive sticker that is not going to be made again. Fair warning, there's only 8 of these guys in existence, and the only way to get it is to sign up for the $20 tier on my Patreon. They are first come, first serve, so if you want one, you might want to act fast because I'm never printing these guys again. They're a little bit bigger than the other stickers, and let's just say they are really, really cool. Now, I do have to stress, you totally don't have to pay for my Patreon. I really don't want anybody to feel obligated to sign up for it. However, if you want to support me directly and get some cool content along the way, then I would really appreciate it if you did sign up. Ultimately, what it really comes down to is I want to be able to focus on making content more regularly for you guys. I want to be able to sink more time into these multi-hour long videos, and I want to be able to focus on content creation as a career, and honestly, Patreon is a very great avenue for me to be able to pursue that. Other than that, though, while we're face-to-face right now, I just have to say thank you so much for clicking on this video, thank you so much for checking out my channel, and above all else, thank you for being a part of my YouTube journey. Extra special thanks to you guys who are subscribed. You guys are the literal best, and I really genuinely appreciate you so much. All of you guys who are not subscribed, on the other hand, I'll have you know I'm on a journey to reach 100,000 subscribers, and I'm getting really close, but I can't do it without your guys' help. So I need all my unsubscribed troops to rally up, hit that subscribe button, that way you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, as long as YouTube actually works the way it's supposed to. Again, I can't stress enough, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and with that being said, let's just get right into it. Okay, I can't lie to you guys, I've been dreading making this video because I don't want it to be the end. I don't handle goodbyes very well, but it's gotta be done. I just gotta do it. I gotta do the thing, I gotta make the video, and I gotta say, this series has been a fantastic adventure for me. We've come so far. We've started all the way back at episode 1 of season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants, and now here we are. Nearly 1 year later, 3 videos later, nearly 5 hours of content later, and here we are. This will be the final video covering season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants, or as some might argue, the best season of SpongeBob SquarePants. And I'll tell you what guys, it's been a hell of a journey so far. We've laughed, we've cried, we've adored the absolutely gorgeous art styles and hilarious comedy of this show. This series has been memorable for me, and these videos have been a really good change of pace for me. A lot of the content I make is focused on morbid and dark episodes of cartoons, but this series was a breath of fresh air for me. It was just a nice chunk of time for me to focus on some positives and just have a happy, nostalgic walk down memory lane. However, all good things must come to an end eventually. It's been an amazing endeavor reviewing all of these episodes, and it's bittersweet to be at the final 10 episodes of season 1, but I gotta admit, I am super excited to dive into these episodes because we have some really good ones to look at today. However, before I get into it, I just have one question for you guys. Should I do season 2? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm down if you guys are. First up, we're going to be jumping into an episode that I have an interesting personal connection with. It's an episode that I remember seeing for the first time as a kid and enjoying it, but I only saw it like 1 or 2 times maybe. Then, I didn't see this episode again for a solid few years until I rented season 1 of SpongeBob on DVD from Hollywood Video back when I was a kid. I remember watching that DVD and seeing this episode and just being mind blown. I hadn't seen it in years and I completely forgot about its existence. It's a really good episode from what I remember though. We're talking about the episode called Valentine's Day. The beginning of this episode starts out in SpongeBob's neighborhood. We see SpongeBob burst out of his front door wishing Bikini Bottom a happy Valentine's Day as he skips out of his house throwing heart-shaped valentines everywhere. SpongeBob approaches Sandy, and she wishes him a happy Valentine's Day as she hands him a heart-shaped acorn with an arrow through it, telling him that she's nuts for him. SpongeBob then pulls out a bottle of chocolate syrup and proceeds to blow a heart-shaped chocolate bubble for Sandy to eat. After that happens, Sandy and SpongeBob then run over to Patrick's Valentine's Day gift.
Take me through the plan again.
Okay. Step 1, Patrick and I get to the Valentine's Day Carnival. Step 2, I position Patrick and myself on top of the Ferris wheel. Step 3, you arrive at designated checkpoint for maximum visual contact. Step 4, Patrick is thrilled. Mission accomplished.
We then cut on over to Patrick, who's using a rock to bash another rock into the shape of a heart.
Hi, Patrick.
Hello?
Patrick, it's me, SpongeBob.
SpongeBob, what are you doing in there?
Patrick?
Oh my gosh! SpongeBob's stuck inside this rock! Oh, hold on, buddy! I'll get you out! SpongeBob! SpongeBob!
Patrick?
SpongeBob! SpongeBob!
Patrick, I'm right behind you.
There you are! Happy Valentine's Day!
SpongeBob says that he has a present for Patrick and that it's the greatest, most amazing, fantastic present ever, and Patrick is just rolling around in excitement. However, SpongeBob says that he can't have it yet because it isn't quite ready yet. Patrick then starts questioning him about the surprise present.
Do you want to ruin the surprise?
Yes! Oh, come on, please?
Nope, sorry.
You gotta tell me!
No can do. Nah, you'll just have to wait.
Please, oh, please, tell me, please!
Okay, Patrick, here we are.
You got me a carnival?
Patrick sprints into the Valentine's Day Carnival and tells everyone to get out because this is his carnival now. As everyone ignores him and walks away, SpongeBob walks up and tells him that it's not the carnival.
Why don't you take this quarter and...
Oh my gosh, a quarter! I've always wanted a quarter!
Not the quarter.
Oh.
Now, take that quarter and buy some cotton candy.
Cotton candy! I can't believe it! Cotton candy!
Get away! Sandy to SpongeBob! Sandy to SpongeBob! Come in, SpongeBob!
Sandy says that she's approaching the carnival, and she asks if he wants her to bring the balloon in, and SpongeBob says that he's not ready yet, as he jokes about Patrick continuously guessing what his surprise is. As Sandy is biding her time, we see a large flock of chocolate-eating scallops approaching at a high rate of speed. We cut back over to SpongeBob and Patrick, as SpongeBob basically eggs Patrick on to keep guessing what his present is because he finds it entertaining.
This tent.
No.
This guy?
No.
This paramecium?
Nope.
I can't find it here in the carnival because it's on top of Mount Climb Up and Fall Off! It wasn't there either!
Are you sure?
Huh?
As Patrick is running back up to Mount Climb Up and Fall Off for round 2, Sandy radios SpongeBob again. SpongeBob tells her to bring it in, but Sandy tells him that there's a bit of a problem as we see her on top of the giant chocolate balloon with a whip as she fights off the chocolate-eating scallops as best she can. She tells SpongeBob that she's gonna be a little late. Sandy tells him to take Patrick up to the Ferris wheel and that she's gonna try to meet him up there.
If Patrick doesn't get his Valentine...
I'm pretty sure it's not up there, SpongeBob!
Patrick! Actually, it's on the Ferris
wheel! I'm ready for the greatest Valentine present in the whole world now, SpongeBob!
Well, this is where you're gonna get it. I hope. Just keep looking out there, pal.
Patrick sits on the Ferris wheel excitedly as SpongeBob sits there looking very nervous that Sandy isn't going to show up. With Patrick blatantly sitting next to him, SpongeBob sneakily radios Sandy to get a status check.
I got my ox in a ditch here. I'm way off course. Scallops are eating the balloon. They're everywhere. Oh, shoot! We're going down, SpongeBob. Switch to plan B.
No B, Sandy, no B, no!
SpongeBob, left stuck between a rock and a hard place, makes an effort at talking to Patrick about what happened. Before SpongeBob is even able to break the news to him, Patrick is already just freaking out. He's gritting his teeth and shaking, and he starts rocking back and forth on the Ferris wheel and just full-blown going crazy.
What's that?
A handshake, a friendly handshake.
A handshake? That's the big gift? You got me a handshake?
A friendly handshake. Happy Valentine's Day.
Patrick is just straight up pissed. We get a montage of SpongeBob having a ton of fun and Patrick following behind him just mean mugging and holding up his hand. After a little while, we see the two of them sitting on a bench at the carnival and Patrick finally snaps out of it and tries to talk to SpongeBob rationally.
Really, it's the thought that counts.
SpongeBob, I just wanted to thank you for this box of chocolates.
No problem, Fran.
I mean, even though
Thanks for the roses, SpongeBob. Happy Valentine's Day.
You too, Dave.
And not that it matters that we've been friends for so
Hey,
long.
SpongeBob, thanks for the bike. Can you believe this guy? I just met him this morning.
So, as I was saying...
Excuse me, do you guys have the time?
Patrick needs love too!
As Patrick loses his mind, just destroying everything heart-related in sight, everybody else runs away in fear. Patrick chases them to the edge of the pier and he demands that they hand over SpongeBob as they throw him out.
You broke my heart! Now I'm gonna break something of yours!
Okay, Patrick. I know I deserve this, but do they?
They didn't give me anything either! Nope, it's too late for that now! For all of you.
Right at that exact second, Sandy shows up with the giant chocolate balloon all patched up and bandaged as she's being guided by the flock of chocolate-eating scallops that she's wrangled with ropes. Sandy lands directly behind Patrick.
The best Valentine in the whole wide world is right behind you.
Sure it is.
I'm telling you, it's right there. Turn around. Turn around. Hey, nincompoop.
You must think I'm pretty dumb, huh?
Yes. Turn around.
No!
Turn around. Turn around.
I am not, I repeat, not going to turn around for any reason ever!
Howdy, Patrick.
Hi, Sandy!
Patrick is immediately speechless. SpongeBob says Happy Valentine's Day, and without a second thought, Patrick runs over and jumps at the chocolate balloon.
Is that solid chocolate?
Patrick, no.
Oh, SpongeBob, you didn't have to give me anything.
This episode is one that I hold in high regard because I wouldn't have known it at the time, of course, but it was one of my earliest experiences with nostalgia. I remember seeing it as a kid for the first time in years and having completely forgotten about it. Seeing it again for the first time was an interesting experience for me because I didn't know what the word for that feeling was. It was like, I remember seeing it before, but I don't remember the exact details of it, and it gives me feelings that remind me of my childhood, and it's just one of those experiences that in some ways is hard to put into words, but on the whole, I feel like you kind of get what I'm talking about. Now, there's a lot to love about this episode, I can say that much. First and foremost, I really love the intro for this episode. I love the way that it starts with a zoom on that pink coral heart. If you've been watching this series of videos up to this point, then you know that I'm a sucker for the old school art style of Season 1 of SpongeBob. This is just a great example of that. I love the way the artists for this season tackled textures for different surfaces. They use different colors and patterns of dots to convey textures on this pink heart. They do a similar yet kind of different color and pattern of dots for the texture of the sand on the ground, and yet another different combination of color and pattern of dots for the texture on the road that runs through the middle of this scene. The colors that they use are just so deep as well. I honestly just love the feeling of Season 1 SpongeBob art. I'd love to own one of the original animation cells from Season 1, that would be so awesome. I did a little bit of research after watching this episode and I found that you can find them online. Most of them that I found are really expensive, but it's one of those things that like, I'm gonna throw it on the bucket list and maybe someday if I'm lucky I can come across a cell from Season 1. That's something that I would definitely hold on to for the rest of my life. As a person who kind of like considers myself a general collector of like all things nerdy and somebody who's really passionate about the very specific things I'm passionate about, that's something that I would proudly keep in my collection, but that's just me. I do gotta say, I loved the way that there was so much tones of red and pink in this episode, intentionally of course. It fits the vibe of Valentine's Day, so it makes sense. During this sequence right here, the pink in the background caught my eye, and I just love the vibe that it gives off. It really just feels so warm and welcoming to me. I also really appreciated all the different shades of red at the carnival that SpongeBob and Patrick ended up going to together. One minor detail that really caught my eye was the tent of Madame Fishy, the fortune teller. I love the clash of colors here as well as the way they drew that eye on her sign. It was just cool in general in my opinion. If there's anything that drives me nuts about this episode though, it's the fact that it's a good example of just how obnoxious SpongeBob and Patrick can be in their own regards. Like, for a good portion of this episode, SpongeBob was just walking around with this big old grin as he was just enjoying torturing Patrick with the fact that Patrick didn't know what his surprise was, and it was just eating him up and making him go crazy. Meanwhile, Patrick on the other hand was just losing his mind completely. Patrick got obsessed with the idea of being given a surprise gift, and he just couldn't rest until he finally got the surprise. His behavior was a little bit annoying, but all things considered, this was really a good episode. It's a classic, and like I said, there's a lot to love here. I also have to keep in mind the specific relationship that I have with this episode, being that, like, you know, it was a good part of my early memories forming and becoming the addict for nostalgia that I pretty much am nowadays. Though this episode does get slightly dinged for SpongeBob and Patrick being just a tiny bit annoying, we're gonna give it a 7 out of 10, and let's go ahead and move on. The next up is an episode that I've always enjoyed, and that's gonna be the episode called The Paper. This episode starts out with Squidward walking out of his house with a lawn chair. He sets it up and gets comfy as he pulls out a gumball and throws the wrapper over to SpongeBob's yard. Just then, SpongeBob's entire house scoots forward as he opens the door and finds the garbage that Squidward just littered in his yard.
Well, time to go.
Squidward! Squidward, wait!
Now what?
You dropped this little piece of paper.
Yeah? So what?
I just figured you probably want it back.
What's the big deal? It's only garbage.
Garbage? But Squidward, in the right hands, this paper is a gold mine of entertainment, a spectacular afternoon of underwater fun, a treasure trove of...
Garbage!
Squidward goes in his house and slams the door in SpongeBob's face, telling him that he definitely doesn't want the paper.
Hello?
You sure?
Yes! I don't want that paper. It's yours forever and ever.
So are you definitely, positively sure?
Get out!
But are you...
Get out! Take it, SpongeBob. Take it, please. And promise me, no matter how much I may beg and plead and cry, don't give that paper back to me. Ever!
SpongeBob runs off, saying he's so lucky to have a friend like Squidward. We then see Squidward go upstairs and try to play his clarinet, but he keeps getting distracted by the sound of SpongeBob laughing about how much fun he's gonna have with the piece of paper.
Gary, watch this. Guess what I am? Well, yes, Gary, I am a sponge with paper stuck in his pants, but I'm also...
Super Sponge, soaking up crime.
See? Here's my cape.
super morons, more like it.
Now, I'm SpongeBob Jungle Pants.
SpongeBob proceeds to have the time of his life playing with the piece of paper. He does all sorts of impressions, like being a matador and being a pirate with an eye patch.
How do you do that?
Look, Gary, origami.
Yay! Snowflake, yay! Paper doll, yay!
This catches Squidward's attention, and he mentions that the paper sounds like fun, but then quickly scoffs at the idea, saying that he'd actually much rather sit inside and read boring Science Digest. As Squidward tries to enjoy his time inside, he continuously is interrupted by SpongeBob and the noise of him having such a good time with his piece of paper. Squidward ends up getting so jealous that he even paints a picture of himself holding the piece of paper as he promptly destroys it. He says that he's gonna prove that the paper isn't fun.
I'm having fun, la la la.
Isn't it great, la 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 la.
Okay, SpongeBob, top with this one. Hey, little Squidward, what's gray and ugly and has 6 arms?
I don't know, but have you looked in the mirror lately?
What? Are you...
Ah, that's a good one, Squidward. Now let me try.
What happened to the paper that fell in the ocean?
I don't know.
It was all washed up.
We fast forward a bit and see Squidward driving around in a little shell car when SpongeBob comes flying by using the piece of paper like a propeller. Then Squidward challenges SpongeBob, saying that he can't play music with the piece of paper.
Hooray! Hooray! That was great, Squidward. All those wrong notes you play made it sound more original.
What? I didn't play any wrong note.
See, you're playing it like this. When ordinarily it goes like this. I'm partial to doing it in the key of A minor myself.
Then Squidward demands that SpongeBob give him the piece of paper back as he proceeds to try to snatch it from his hands. SpongeBob refuses to let go, telling Squidward that he said no matter how much he begged or pleaded or cried to never give him the piece of paper back. SpongeBob vowed to keep that promise.
I never said anything like that.
Sure you did, Squidward. Look.
Take it, SpongeBob, take it, please. And promise me, no matter how much I may beg and plead and cry, don't give that paper back to me. Ever.
Want to see it again?
No, I don't want to see it again.
Squidward then decides that he needs to offer to trade SpongeBob for the piece of paper. He offers him a rubber band and some pocket lint, but SpongeBob doesn't budge. Squidward decides to slowly but surely up the ante until he has literally given SpongeBob everything but the shirt off of his back.
Oh, Squidward, is this still part of the test? Because it's really getting harder and harder to keep my promise.
Okay, the shirt. Take it, take my shirt.
Squidward's shirt. I've always loved that shirt. Okay, I'll trade. I can break a promise for this.
SpongeBob offers Squidward all of his stuff back, but Squidward refuses, saying that he doesn't need any of that garbage now that he has the piece of paper.
I've got the paper, you got my useless garbage. I got it. You can't have it. I got it. You're a sucker. You're a sucker. At last. What should we try first, Mr. Paper? Impressions. A guy with a piece of paper on his nose. Look at me. I'm a guy with a piece of paper on his nose. Aha. Wait. Oh. Ta-da.
Squidward tries to emulate everything that he just saw SpongeBob doing, but it doesn't work for him the same way that it did for SpongeBob. It's just a boring old piece of paper.
A guy throwing a piece of paper on the ground. A guy stomping on a piece of paper. I'm a guy who traded everything he owns for a...
A worthless piece of paper. Hey, thanks. That's just what I needed, Squidward. Nice shirt, SpongeBob. Huh?
Does anybody have any sunscreen?
This episode is a classic. It's one that I can genuinely say made me start to put a really conscious effort into thinking outside of the box when I was a kid. That fact is just a testament to how great this show really is. Seeing SpongeBob having the time of his life just playing with a simple tiny gum wrapper was just so inspiring in an awesomely relatable way. Like, seeing this episode as a kid made me look at physical items in a different way, and I would notice myself finding small bits of joy in random places as a result of that mindset. I felt like if SpongeBob could find fun in a small gum wrapper, I could find fun in pretty much anything if I tried hard enough. This episode would stick in my head throughout the years. I don't remember seeing this one all too many times when I was younger, but I do remember the premise pretty well due to how much it stuck with me. The star of this episode, of course, being that piece of paper, and SpongeBob just a side character in comparison to how awesome that piece of paper was. For real though, seeing SpongeBob being able to flawlessly play clarinet songs with a piece of paper that Squidward couldn't even play with an actual clarinet was just hilarious. In regards to this specific episode though, there's one question that comes to mind that has been in the back of my mind for years. After Squidward lost that piece of paper and he wanted it back from SpongeBob, why didn't he just eat another piece of gum and use the wrapper from that piece instead? Like, we see him jump through all of these different hoops and do all of these things in an effort to get that specific gum wrapper back, when it's like, odds are he bought those gum pieces in bulk and he probably has at least one more inside of his house. Who knows, maybe he didn't have any more of them in his house, but still, he probably could have avoided a lot of the headache and losing literally all of his worldly possessions. However, that wouldn't have made for such entertaining TV, so I totally get it. I gotta say that I really appreciate the fact that this was more or less a Squidward-centered episode, in the fact that it was primarily about him, but SpongeBob was still naturally the star of the show in this one. Come on, SpongeBob and all the awesome tricks that he was doing with that gum wrapper really just stole the show completely. He genuinely made playing with a piece of paper look like so much fun. Of all the things that he did, the helicopter definitely had to be my favorite. That would be so incredibly convenient for practical use. If I could do that, I'd be flying to work and to run all my errands and everything. You wouldn't have to pay for gas or anything. Like, imagine how convenient it would be if, like, for your lunch break or something, you could just fly home really quick to enjoy your lunch at home and then fly all the way back to work within a matter of minutes. It would just be so incredibly convenient. I also have to bring up that I really loved when SpongeBob was playing superhero. The way he showed off his paper cape and was blowing on it so that it looked like it was actually flowing just had me dying. All things considered, as far as this episode goes, I'd say that this one was excellent. I'm really gonna have to give it a confident 8.5 out of 10, and we're just gonna keep trekking along. Next up is another episode that I look back on fondly, and I thoroughly enjoy this one. It's gonna be the episode called Arg. In the beginning of this episode, we see Mr. Krabs looking through a telescope out the front of the Krusty Krab, saying that there's no customers in sight and that he'll break out in a rash if he doesn't make any money today.
Yippee! I'm rich! Look, Patrick, 8 gold doubloons!
Wait, I saw it first! Yeah! Mine! Huh?
Boy, Mr. Krabs, you sure are sweaty.
What's this? Where are the doubloons?
There are no real doubloons, Mr. Krabs. It's a game, the Flying Dutchman's Treasure Hunt.
Based on a real treasure map.
Take a break and play around with us.
After confirming that SpongeBob's work has been done and that all of the gum has been scraped off the underside of the table, Mr. Krabs decides to take a seat and join in on the fun.
One of your shipmates has been a bad pirate. Send him to the brig. It's off to jail for you, Mr. Krabs. Patrick, you're fired. But I don't even work here. Would you like a job starting now? Why would I? You're fired.
The group continues their game, and when it comes to Mr. Krabs' turn, he ends up getting a card that says he's a real pirate and that he can go straight to the X that marks the spot.
You get to dig for treasure, Mr. Krabs.
Treasure? There it is! It's the Flying Dutchman's treasure! Go!
Hey, Mr. Krabs is getting all sweaty again.
Rev up those fryers, cause I am sure hungry for one. Help! Help! My leg!
Can't you see we're closed? Ready for another round? This is my kind of game.
We see the day just fly on by as these three keep playing the game over and over and over again. By the end of the day, SpongeBob and Patrick are just exhausted. However, Mr. Krabs is still ecstatic about the game and ready to go for another round, just as excited as he was for the first one. SpongeBob apologizes to Mr. Krabs, saying that he's really got to get some sleep as he carries Patrick all the way home. SpongeBob then gets to his house and walks in the front door to find Mr. Krabs in his living room with the table all set up and ready to play another round.
Mr. Krabs, it's late. Go to bed. Good night, Mr. Krabs.
The wind is perfect, the tide is right. Let's hunt for treasure.
Mr. Krabs, you gotta...
Tread softly, lad. If the Dutchman hears you, we'll never get his treasure.
But Mr.
I'll go
Krabs...
for you, boy.
But Mr.
8 paces north, that's a good start, lad.
But Mr.
1, 2, 3...
Mr. Krabs! I wanna go to bed! Mr. Krabs, I'm sorry, but it's just a game, you know?
Mr. Krabs apologizes and he walks home with his tail between his legs, and we cut right to the next morning where SpongeBob wakes up to this.
Fast! Pineapple ho! Heave to and prepare to be boarded!
Ah, go home already. I'm done playing that game, Mr. Krabs.
That's Captain Krabs to you! And this is no game! We're gonna be pirates!
Pirates?
Aye! How'd you like to go on a real treasure hunt with a real treasure map?
Treasure? We're gonna be pirates!
Mr. Krabs throws a bag of pirate clothes at them and tells them to put them on so he's not embarrassed to be seen with them.
Look, I'm Peggy the pirate.
I'm Blind Beard the pirate. Oop! Arrgh!
Things don't exactly get off to the best start as we see them sailing. Mr. Krabs is looking at the map and plotting where they're going, and SpongeBob asks if he can see the map, but Mr. Krabs says no, saying that only the captain can lay eyes on the map.
Okie dokie then.
Arrgh! A pirate doesn't say okie dokie then. A pirate says arrgh.
Oh, okie... I mean, arg, Captain Krabs. Captain, we're about to hit the... we're arg about arg.
Out with it, man! Arrgh! Think! He's trying, to say...
Mr. Krabs tells them that from now on, only the captain is able to say arg. Mr. Krabs asks SpongeBob for a status report, and SpongeBob tells him that the whole ship is underwater, which I find ironic because they're all underwater and so is everything around them, but hey, I guess that's neither here nor there. So Captain Krabs decides that they're gonna finish the treasure hunt on foot. They walk until Mr. Krabs finds the first landmark, the seaweed with 2 leaves on it. However, it has 3 leaves on it, so Mr. Krabs just rips 1 leaf off.
Ensign Patrick, which way is east? Let's see. That way, Captain! 9,997, 9,998, 9,999, 10,000. Where's the X? Supposed to be right here. 10,000 paces east. Oh, east? I thought you said west.
The 3 of them proceed to walk the 10,000 paces back the way they came, and the additional 10,000 paces in the direction that they were originally supposed to go. They start to get close, and SpongeBob and Patrick are barely dragging themselves on the ground, both just exhausted, starving, and wanting to go home.
You get a little tired and a wee bit hungry, and you want to shove off for home. That sickens me. A pirate is not judged by the notches in his cutlass or the size of his booty. A pirate is judged by the loyalty of his crew. And without a loyal crew, what am I captain of? Just a bunch of sand. Don't cry, Captain Krabs.
Yeah, we'll be your loyal crew.
We cut to later that night while SpongeBob and Patrick are happily sleeping on the cold, hard ground while Mr. Krabs sleeps inside of his cozy tent. SpongeBob and Patrick are just repeatedly talking about how loyal they are, and they come to the conclusion that they're both so loyal that they want to continue the treasure hunt right now instead of resting. They head right on up to Mr. Krabs' tent, but he's nowhere to be found. They notice that the treasure map is just sitting unprotected on a table nearby. They approach it and both of them just start poking at it because they were told not to look at it, but they weren't told not to touch it.
Oops, Patrick! It opened by itself! The map! I gotta see it, I gotta look at it, see it, and mom on with...
SpongeBob,
Yeah?
did you notice something familiar about this map?
You mean like that it's our game board taped to a piece of paper?
Do you think this is a problem?
Mr. Krabs walks out of the tent towards them rather threateningly as he talks crazy. SpongeBob and Patrick cower in fear, and at that exact moment, we find out that they're standing right on top of the X that marks the spot.
Wow! That game really is based on a real treasure map.
Well, what are you waiting for, lads? Dig! Dig! Dig, 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 dig!
We've got it, Captain Krabs!
Hand it up to me, lads! Here! We finally found it!
The Dutchman's treasure!
Wow! What are you gonna do with your share, Patrick?
I don't know. How are you gonna spend your share, SpongeBob? What shares?
The group starts arguing as Mr. Krabs doesn't want to share the treasure with anybody else, but SpongeBob argues that they should split it amongst the group. We pan up to see that they just so happen to be underneath the Flying Dutchman's haunted ghostly ship. The Dutchman is sleeping up there and he abruptly wakes up to the sound of them arguing.
Who dug up the Dutchman's treasure? Ladies! So you two scallywags dug up me treasure. Well, you saved me a lot of digging, you did. So here's a reward for the two of yous.
Wow!
2 gold doubloons!
Mr. Krabs then chimes up saying that he's the captain of the crew and that he wants a reward too. The Dutchman then digs through his pocket and tosses something at Mr. Krabs.
Gold, 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 gold. Huh? Well, it's just a little plastic treasure chest.
Plastic!
Aye, but it's based on a real treasure chest. Gee, Mr. Krabs, you're looking all sweaty again.
This episode is such a great one. I found it hilarious how in the beginning Mr. Krabs was so desperate for a customer to come in and was feeling sick at the idea of not making money, but when he got hooked on the game, a hungry Fred the Fish came in looking to spend some money and Mr. Krabs just violently throws him out saying that they're closed now. It's honestly kind of funny because like Mr. Krabs was feeling like trash after not getting that rush he gets when he makes money, so instead he gets addicted to the rush of making fake money that he gets from playing the treasure hunting board game. He gets so addicted to that fake money rush that the real money rush doesn't seem as valuable and doesn't quite scratch that itch anymore, so he's straight up throwing out paying customers as a result. It was just so backwards, but somehow so fitting considering Mr. Krabs' personality and his character. It just makes sense that Mr. Krabs of all people gets addicted to a board game about hunting for treasure. I do gotta say though, I love the idea of this board game and I would totally play this in real life. I wish that they would give it the Eels and Escalators treatment. I bought the real life Eels and Escalators board game online and it's interesting for sure, but I feel like something like this would actually be super fun. Like, it might get a little bit messy from the sand, but it's still a really cool concept. Eels and Escalators, like, it's cool, I get it, but the playing it is kind of clunky, and it's a game that you could tell watching the show there wasn't much of a plan for how the game would work, so when it came time to actually executing it and making rules for the game, it got a little awkward in translation. Versus the Flying Dutchman's treasure hunt is definitely something I feel like could be pretty straightforward and really could be an enjoyable game if done correctly. Now, as a kid, I remember seeing this episode, and I always had a ton of appreciation for when Mr. Krabs throws that bag of pirate supplies at SpongeBob and Patrick, and they come back as Peggy the Pirate and Blindbeard the Pirate. It was always hilarious to me in the moments when SpongeBob and Patrick just don't get it. Mr. Krabs gave them exactly what they needed to dress the part, but they just weren't picking up what he was putting down. Even now as an adult, I always get a good chuckle over that gag and them falling over because of the peg legs and eye patches. I've come to realize from watching this show that I really have a deep love for the early episodes that involve the Flying Dutchman. I love the color of the Dutchman himself, given that lime green is my favorite color, and I also really like the general spooky vibe and aesthetic of the Dutchman himself. He's a really interesting character to me, and I genuinely enjoy the way that they portrayed him in these early episodes that involve him. One thing I do feel the need to point out though is that in most kids show, and I guess kind of media in general that portrays pirates and treasure maps, the treasure is always marked by a red X on the map, as was the case in this episode. However, there usually isn't an actual X on the ground where the treasure is. When they finally stumbled upon the treasure and found the X on the ground, I just busted up laughing. Why would the Flying Dutchman put an actual X on the ground where his treasure is? The point of the treasure map is to have someone follow the clues and then dig in the spot that they believe the X is supposed to indicate. I mean, the way that the Flying Dutchman did it would leave it so that any random person off the streets could just stumble upon the X on the ground and decide to dig in that spot and find his treasure, without even needing to know that the treasure map exists in the first place. I mean, I know that they did that for the comedic effect, so I'm not going to question it too hard, but it worked and it got a laugh out of me. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I love the humor of season 1 of SpongeBob so much. Seeing that happen as a kid, I didn't even question it. It was like, yep, there's an X, they finally found the treasure, yay. But seeing it as an adult has me looking at this and hysterically realizing the irony of the X just being blatantly on the ground. All in all though, this was a great episode. Mr. Krabs did get a little bit annoying, but that aside, it was fantastic. I'm just gonna go ahead and give this one a 9 out of 10, and let's keep on keeping on. Next up is an episode that I've been so hyped to talk about since the start of my SpongeBob review. It's an episode that I look back on really fondly, and I've been dying to dive into it again. We're talking about none other than the episode called Rock Bottom. This episode starts out with SpongeBob and Patrick standing and waiting for the bus after having an amazing day at Bikini Bottom's favorite theme park, Glove World. The bus pulls up and the two friends hop on.
Let me get my wallet. Wait, let me check this pocket. No. Patrick, you got any change?
How much do you need?
How much is it?
50 cents.
50 cents.
Nope.
Let me check my other pocket.
Forget it!
What did you say?
Just take your seat!
Thanks, mister.
Yeah, whatever.
The bus pulls off and the two friends share all of the cool stuff that they got at Glove World, like SpongeBob's glove light and Patrick's gloves for his glove action figure. As they keep going, they pass a sign that catches Patrick's attention.
Hey, SpongeBob?
Yeah, Patrick?
Where's leaving Bikini Bottom?
Where did you see that?
We just passed the sign. You are now in leaving Bikini Bottom.
What?
What's wrong, SpongeBob?
Patrick, I think we're on the wrong...
The bus makes a very abrupt stop at the bottom of this underwater cliff, and the bus driver kicks Patrick and SpongeBob off of the bus with little to no reasoning why. SpongeBob tries to plead with him to no avail, and the two are just left stranded there.
Where is this, SpongeBob?
Rock Bottom. It sure is weird around here. Kinda different. Even the soil looks different.
Would you mind putting me down?
Bob, I don't like it here. It's dark and scary. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Look, I can't even tell the bathrooms apart.
SpongeBob gets the idea to wait until someone comes out and says that they can base which bathroom is which based on that person's appearance. As fish start coming out of the bathroom, SpongeBob and Patrick just end up even more confused and scared. As Patrick starts to panic, SpongeBob tells him to just wait for the bus, and in the meanwhile, he's gonna go to the bus station to get a copy of the bus schedule. He tells Patrick to call him if the bus ends up coming.
This place sure is creepy.
Hey, SpongeBob, the bus is here.
I guess Grandpa SquarePants was right. Don't run for a bus. Especially one that's going up at a 90-degree angle.
SpongeBob decides that he's just gonna wait for the next bus. While he's standing there, he notices his shoe is untied, so he bends down to tie it, but while he's busy doing that, the bus drives by too fast for SpongeBob to get on. Then, SpongeBob's balloon flies away and he starts to chase it around.
Hold on! Stop that bus! Oh, not again! Excuse me, sir. Can you help me? Yeah, No, not the balloon! I need to know when the next bus comes.
SpongeBob then stands around waiting for the bus. He starts to get hungry and he eats some glove-shaped candy from his glove-shaped candy dispenser, but he's disappointed to find out that they're all glove-flavored candies. He spies a candy vending machine just sitting on the side of the road in the sand. SpongeBob goes over to buy some candy, and as soon as he puts a coin in the machine, a bus drives by again at high speed. He slowly goes back and puts in another coin, and this happens. SpongeBob then tries all sorts of different tricks, like using a cardboard stand of himself or turning himself into a bench, but none of it works. Feeling fed up with life and the way things are going, he decides to storm into the bus station, planning to get some answers.
I am first in line, and no one is gonna tell me otherwise. Okay, second. I am second in line. Okay, third is good. Fourth, not bad. Okay, 329. I am 329th in line, and nobody forget it.
SpongeBob ends up falling asleep while waiting in line. Finally, his turn comes up, and he makes his way up to the window.
When is the next bus to Bikini Bottom?
What?
The bus schedule, the next bus.
I can't understand your accent.
The next bus to Bikini Bottom.
Oh, why didn't you say so? Next bus leaves in 5 seconds. Ooh, tough luck, kid. That's the last one till morning.
Oh, no, you don't.
Good night.
SpongeBob goes full-blown Karen mode and demands a bus to Bikini Bottom as the guy behind the counter just kind of leaves and shuts off the lights, leaving SpongeBob alone in the dark. He pulls out his glove light and uses it to light the area, but the battery dies immediately.
This isn't your average everyday darkness. This is advanced darkness. Hey, if I close my eyes, it doesn't seem so dark. Who's there? Well, I guess that spot will be there tomorrow. I think I better just keep walking. Running! Better start running! 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 Sprinting! Yes! I just gotta keep sprinting! Sitting, bleeding.
SpongeBob is terrified by the repetitive sound of someone blowing raspberries, which sounds to be seemingly getting closer and closer. Just then, a familiar face from earlier shows up, holding SpongeBob's balloon. SpongeBob tries to explain that he's stuck here and that he needs to catch a bus to get home, but the guy seems to not understand as he just kind of stands there blowing up SpongeBob's balloon more and more.
Balloon has enough air. Thanks. Hey, I get it. Balloon travel. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Home at last.
Don't worry, SpongeBob, I'm coming back for you!
Man, there is so much to love about this episode. At face value, one thing I really enjoy about this one is the way that it kind of has that spooky vibe with all the darkness and unfamiliarity, but it also maintains that funny, cheeky SpongeBob vibe. This episode takes the chance to be a little bit spooky while maintaining what the core audience knows the show for, and honestly, sometimes that can be a hard thing to pull off, but they did an amazing job. Starting from the top, I have to give it up for that title card music. This music does such a great job of invoking those uncertainly ominous feelings. Hearing it makes me feel like something scary and bad is coming, and I just love it. Whoever made this music did a really great job of epitomizing that fear of the deep dark unknown feeling. Moving on from there, I just gotta say, how hilarious is Glove World? For me, it's the randomness of it all. It's a theme park that revolves around gloves for some unknown reason, and I just love it. One thing that slightly disappointed me was the fact that Glove World would make its debut in this episode, however we wouldn't see it appear again until season 5. I feel like somewhere between seasons 1 and 5 they could have done something else with Glove World, but it's not the end of the world. One random thing that drives me nuts is how when SpongeBob gets on the bus driver stops him and tells him to pay. SpongeBob ends up not having any change, so he asks Patrick if he has any change, so Patrick asks how much it is. Now, shouldn't Patrick know how much it costs since he already got on the bus and got past the driver? Unless the driver only stopped SpongeBob and expected him to pay, which wouldn't make much sense. I don't know, that was just one random thing that I always noticed about this episode as a kid and even now as an adult. I do have to take a second to talk about the bathrooms in Rock Bottom. They're just labeled with a question mark and an upside down question mark, leaving SpongeBob and Patrick confused over which bathroom is which. Now, I'm no fish expert, but I'm pretty sure what they were trying to portray was the bathroom on the right being the men's room and the bathroom on the left being the ladies' room. My initial assessment just being based off of the appearance of the fish, but I was also able to come to a more certain conclusion when SpongeBob was in the bus station talking to the fish behind the counter. That's the same fish who was seen coming out of the bathroom, and judging by the sound of the masculine sounding voice, I'm led to believe that this fish is likely going to be a male. I know, completely irrelevant, but just saying that was my conclusion for the bathrooms. One other thing I found myself questioning is why would this random candy vending machine just be sitting on the side of the road across the street from a bus stop? That's just such a random spot. I'd understand it being maybe inside of the bus station, or like maybe if it was at least near the bus stop on the same side of the road, but even that would be kind of weird. It just honestly felt a little bit out of place for the most part. I will say though, I really appreciate the part where SpongeBob was touching the candy bar and it was making the bus engine rev like he was pressing on the gas. It made me giggle and I liked it. There's one thing that I really need to touch on though, and that's going to be the whole sequence of the bus driving face first down the cliff. As a kid, this absolutely terrified me. Like 100% heart racing fear just at the idea of this. As a kid, I used to have nightmares that I was in a car that rides up like a 200-foot spiral pillar with no side rails or anything, or like I'm in a car crossing a bridge that isn't finished and we have to speed up to make the jump across the bridge to the other side. Those dreams always stressed me out to the max, and this scene brought back those same exact feelings. Seeing this as a kid just gave me instant anxiety and made me worry about getting in the car. But honestly, fear never ruined this episode for me. I've always loved this one. It's so unique and it just has such a specific feel to it that I can't really put into words. It's just so rock bottomy, for lack of a better word. We just have to give this one a 10 out of 10 and move right along. The next episode that we're going to check out is none other than the episode called Texas. Not gonna lie, I remember having mixed feelings about this episode every time I saw it as a kid, but let's just see what kind of vibe it gives us all these years later. The episode starts out at the Goo Lagoon, where we see SpongeBob has built a sand model of his house right next to Patrick's model of his house, as the two are using their hands as puppets to play. We cut over to Sandy, who's standing in front of a large pile of sand.
There it is.
What is it?
Can't you see? It's Texas.
Texas? What's a Texas?
Oh, it's nothing but a memory now.
All right then, let's make one of your tree dome.
You know, all of a sudden I don't feel much like sandcastles, SpongeBob. I'll see y'all later.
Sandy starts walking home. SpongeBob tries to stop her, to no avail. He even tries karate, which usually does the trick.
I get it. Not feeling up to karate, huh? Whatever you say, Sandy. Boy, I hope Sandy doesn't attack me from behind.
Sandy keeps walking, and SpongeBob tries to stop her by offering her to go jellyfishing with them. She says to SpongeBob that she's really just not in the mood to eat jellyfish.
We don't eat them. We let them go.
Fly away, little critter.
Go on, go back home where you belong. Run along, back to your family and friends. I know they miss you as much as you miss them. Hurry, before they forget you and leave you behind. Remember, there's no place like home.
Sandy admits to SpongeBob that she's feeling really homesick, and that's why she was crying. So, of course, SpongeBob decides to combat her homesickness by taking her to her home, which, honestly, just seems to make things worse. Sandy goes inside and puts up her shades so that no one can see inside of her tree dome. Shortly after that, she appears out the top of her tree dome with an acoustic guitar. She starts playing a sad-sounding country song about how much she misses Texas and just wants to go home. SpongeBob and Patrick are walking back home when they overhear the song.
I miss those wide open skies. I miss my 20 acres, barbecues and pecan pies. Oh, why? When I'm so far from you, Texas, all I can do is cry.
By the end of the song, everyone in Bikini Bottom is just in tears. SpongeBob starts to feel bad at the realization that Sandy really misses her home.
Well, let's go get some Texas and bring it down here.
Patrick, you can't. That's it. Patrick, your genius is showing.
Where?
We cut over to the Krusty Krab where we hear SpongeBob telling Mr. Krabs that it looks perfect and that they're gonna go get her now. They head right on over to Sandy's tree dome, just overexcited, but when they get there, they knock on the door and they're greeted by Sandy.
What are you doing with those bags?
I'm going back home to Texas.
What? Now? You can't. I mean,
It's time for this tumbleweed to tumble on home.
Wait, Sandy, you can't, because we were gonna, the Krusty Krab that is not the right direction. Wait, if I can't, Sandy, wait a second.
SpongeBob tries everything he can to convince Sandy to come with him to the Krusty Krab, but she says that she's tired of fish food and that saying goodbye to all of her friends will just be too sad. Just like that, without even a hug or even saying goodbye, Sandy gets on the bus to leave for Texas forever.
Can't believe she's gone.
Yeah, what's so great about dumb old Texas?
What did you say?
Texas is dumb?
Don't you dare take the name of Texas in vain!
You mean we can't say anything bad about dumb old Texas?
No, you can't!
Oh, then, can we say people from Texas are dumb?
No, you can't say nothing about Texas!
This gives SpongeBob an idea. He notices that as long as he keeps bad-mouthing dumb old stupid Texas, then he'll keep Sandy's full attention, which hopefully will leave him in a position where he can lure her to the Krusty Krab for her party.
I'm Texas. Howdy, y'all.
I'm Texas, too.
Howdy, y'all.
Get a dog, little Longy. Get a dog.
Howdy, y'all.
Get a dog, little Longy. Get a dog.
Y'all best cut it out!
The stars at night are dull and dim whenever they have to be over dumb old stupid Texas. Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas.
What's the difference?
Sandy gets fed up and she drops her bags and threatens them. She says they better apologize or they're gonna get it. They just laugh at her and run off as Patrick keeps smack-talking.
Can we say that shoes from Texas are dumb?
Okay, Patrick, that's enough.
Why? Do you think that old slowpoke Texas is gonna...
Run faster, Patrick.
As the two of them keep running, Sandy lassos Patrick and he comes to a crash landing with a mushroom cloud from a nuclear explosion. SpongeBob keeps running and he leaps for the door of the Krusty Krab, but right as he gets his fingers around the handle, she gets his other arm and we see Sandy tugging the rope as SpongeBob tries his hardest not to let go of the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob holds his grip tight, and Sandy keeps pulling until the entire restaurant is straight ripped in half.
Howdy, y'all!
What's this?
It's a party!
For you!
For me?
It's your own little slice of Texas. Check it out, Sandy. We got square dancing,
Ow.
giant
Ow,
barbecues,
ow, ow, ow.
homemade peas in a can pies, and we got our very own 10-gallon hats. So what do you think? You gonna stay?
Sandy cries tears, and her helmet floods again as SpongeBob grabs her bags for her and tells her she doesn't have to cry anymore. But she flushes her helmet like it's a toilet, and we realize that she's not crying, she's laughing. She says that she appreciates the gesture, but home isn't about all that stuff. It's about being surrounded by critters that care about you. As all of her Bikini Bottom friends, including Squidward, crowd around the screen, Sandy realizes that she is surrounded by critters who care about her, and that it would be dumb for her to give all of that up.
Does that mean you'll stay?
I'm staying.
That makes me feel all wiggly.
Yeah, who needs double Texas?
What did you just say?
Should I start running now?
This episode is one that deep in my heart I really look back on fondly, but it does give me mixed emotions. Of course, I love this episode. It's a great one that really does an admirable job of tackling what can be a really tough and sensitive topic. Missing home and homesickness in general can be a really hard one to tackle. It definitely hits close to home for me, as I'm sure it probably does for many of you guys too. I remember when this episode first premiered. It was shortly after my family moved to Washington from California, and this episode really stuck with me. I was still missing all of my old friends and family back in California, and I was struggling with adjusting to my new life in Washington. This episode, in a way, helped me cope with the feelings that I was feeling at the time, but it also compounded them in a way. I guess, to be direct, the ending helped me process the move, but everything leading up to that really made me miss my old home. I was fortunate enough as a kid to have parents and sisters who cared about me and would support me through those hard feelings, but not everyone is that fortunate. That really came to mind in this episode when we see SpongeBob and Patrick try to make Sandy feel better at first. When everyone is still at the Goo Lagoon and Sandy starts to feel sad and she tells SpongeBob and Patrick that she misses home, they get the idea to just bring her back to her tree dome, saying that this is her home. It's a tough one where you know that their intent is kind and their hearts are in the right place, but they just don't get it. Like, in their heads, they took her to her home and she should feel better. However, they don't understand that in many ways, that tree dome probably feels like a jail cell to Sandy. She's stuck underwater with all of these creatures who can't even relate to her existence and the things she's really been through or struggled with. When we look at it under that lens, it honestly feels really claustrophobic to me in a sense. Like, the only safe place for Sandy there is her tree dome, which is honestly small. The one place in her life that she can breathe freely and touch some grass isn't even a whole quarter acre. To an animal like a squirrel, nature is paramount to a healthy life. Like, even in the big city where squirrels live, there are trees for them to climb. Heck, my city even has these cute little tiny bridges above big streets for the squirrels to cross safely. There's even local laws that make it illegal for people to harass squirrels, and I'm not even joking. It's random, but yeah, the squirrels in my area are unironically treated like royalty. Sandy, on the other hand, more or less is, in my opinion, being abused and treated like a science experiment. Hear me out here and just follow my logic for a sec. I want you to keep in mind that I haven't really seen past like season 4 or maybe a tiny bit of season 5 of SpongeBob, so they may have expanded on this topic. Forgive me because I haven't researched it for the sake of the authentic reaction to this episode. But like, how did Sandy get here? We know that she's a scientist, and her being in Bikini Bottom was originally part of a science experiment, but like, there's no way this lone squirrel acting upon her own volition was able to construct a completely vacuum-sealed underwater dome that's able to withstand the amount of pressure that is present that deep down on the ocean floor. Like, of course, with all due respect to her intelligence, that kind of job is just a lot more than one person or squirrel could take on singularly. Naturally, that just makes my mind wander. Is Sandy part of like a society of secret animals that put together this experiment? Or is it a society of like specifically squirrels maybe? Honestly, cartoon logic would allow either, but my brain jumps to one specific conclusion that's a lot more dark than those two. I personally imagine that humans could be behind it. I imagine it like some jerk scientist wanted to explore the possibility of living underwater and constructing an entire city at the bottom of the ocean, and sending a lone squirrel down there and constructing a tiny tree dome for her to live in was his way of testing the hypothesis that would eventually lead to the scientific conclusion that would begin the construction of the underwater city. I mean, basically Andrew Ryan from BioShock, but with a few more steps. Long story short though, it feels like basically some humans sent Sandy down to the bottom of the ocean and just kind of left her there, never planning to bring her back. However, I will say now, this episode basically disproves that theory, as Sandy proves in this episode that she could pretty much go home at any time that she wanted to. Ultimately, morbid implications aside, this episode really did have a good message behind it. It's okay to miss home, or what used to be home to you. Life changes can be hard, and we all process those things differently. However, at the end of the day, home is a lot more than just a physical place. It's about being surrounded by loved ones who care about you and who will be there to support you. The moral of the story in the end being an important one in my opinion. There's a few things along the way I just have to question and point out though. First of all, how is it that Sandy's tree dome doesn't flood when she comes out of the top to play her song? Like, this platform pushes her out of the top and we can see a hole open in the top of the tree dome. At this point you'd think water would go rushing into the tree dome, but for some reason it doesn't. Not gonna question it too far, but I couldn't leave that stone unturned. I also gotta take a sec to talk about the song that Sandy sang. I can't lie, I'm not the biggest fan of sad country music, but this one is definitely an exception to that rule. This song isn't that bad at all. It's catchy and it fits the vibe really well. I really love the part where we see SpongeBob and Patrick hearing the song and trying to figure out what's going on. We see Patrick pretty much fighting with the musical notes that were trying to surround him, and it made me chuckle. That just felt like a really Patrick thing to do in my opinion. One other really random thing that kind of bothered me about this episode is the fact that Sandy basically tried to leave without saying goodbye. Like, she got on that bus to leave and there was no hug, there was no "I'll miss you," there wasn't anything other than "I'm going home," and next thing you know, she was just gone. It was really sad, and honestly, it seemed out of character for Sandy. She doesn't strike me as the leave without saying goodbye type, but honestly, depression can deeply affect someone's normal mannerisms. Maybe that was affecting her, but who knows. Lastly, to end the analysis of this episode on a more light-hearted note, just saying, the Krusty Krab door doesn't really make sense. I don't know about you guys, but anytime I approach any building with the door handle oriented the way that the Krusty Krab's handle is, I expect it to be a pull door. Literally, walking up to any restaurant, I don't expect to just push the door to get in. I swear it's almost always a pull to enter. If it was set up properly, then when SpongeBob ended up being lassoed by Sandy as she was trying to pull him off the door would have just simply opened and Sandy would have seen everyone inside waiting for her to join the party. Again, random and not a huge deal, but just one of those things that I really felt the need to bring up. All things considered though, I can say this episode is another fantastic one. We're gonna give this one a 9 out of 10 and let's keep on going. The next episode that we're going to dive into is one that I remember grinding my gears a little bit when I was a kid, only because I don't like it when people treat SpongeBob poorly. We're looking at none other than the episode called Walking Small. God, I gotta say, I love that Season 1 Plankton episode title card music. It just goes so hard. Now, this episode starts out at the Goo Lagoon on a nice day when a bulldozer pulls up and takes out the sign for the Goo Lagoon. We see Plankton jump out and up some barricades as he pulls out a megaphone.
Attention beachgoers! You are trespassing! You have exactly 17 minutes to haul your carcasses off of the future site of the Chum Bucket Mega Bucket.
Do you hear something?
Plankton threatens to bulldoze everyone when he gets no response to his commands, but a little kid walks up and picks up his bulldozer thinking that it's a toy. His mom tells him to drop it and they walk off as Plankton is left realizing a rather harsh reality.
But it's becoming increasingly obvious. I can deny it no longer! I am small. I need someone big to clear the beach for me. I need... Oh! SpongeBob!
Dabbing on the beat, doo 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 doo. Dabbing on the beat, doo doo doo. Dabbing on the beat, doo 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 doo. Dabbing on the beat, doo doo doo.
Yes.
We see SpongeBob walk up to an ice cream stand and get cut off by multiple people who just completely cut in line, leaving the ice cream man apologizing because he's all out of ice cream by the time it's SpongeBob's turn. Nearby, SpongeBob hears Plankton crying and he comes to see what's wrong.
I'm crying because I've got these 2 ice cream cones, but I only need 1. I don't know what to do with the other one.
I'll eat one of those ice cream cones for you.
SpongeBob, would you do that for me?
Sure.
SpongeBob.
Plankton tells SpongeBob that it's great to get the things that you desire, and he tells SpongeBob that with a little more training on how to be assertive, he could get anything that he wants. SpongeBob agrees, and the two start laughing maniacally.
SpongeBob, don't let that guy sit on you. Assertiveness lesson number 1. Tell him to get off.
Excuse me, sir. You're sitting on my body, which is also my face.
No, be assertive.
Beep, beep.
Not insertive.
The guy gets up and walks off. Plankton tells SpongeBob that he needs to be more aggressive if he wants to get what he wants. Ironically, he tells SpongeBob that he's too soft. Plankton ends up spying the eel who stole SpongeBob's ice cream cone walking nearby, and he tells SpongeBob that they're gonna go tell him off and get his ice cream back.
Listen, you. My friend's got something to say.
What? Who said that? Was it you?
Tell him off, SpongeBob. Assert yourself.
That's my ice cream cone.
Great. Now let him have it.
You can have it. Say thanks.
No! I'll show you how. Hey, pencil neck. Yeah, you. Slither over here.
Plankton threatens to make every waking moment a swirling torrent of pain and misery for this guy unless he surrenders the ice cream cone, and he just starts crying and throws the ice cream cone in SpongeBob's face as he runs off. SpongeBob seems rather upset that he made that guy cry, but Plankton assures him that those were tears of joy and that he was happy that SpongeBob stood up for himself. We cut to later on, where SpongeBob is using a metal detector to look for stuff in the sand when some random dude walks up and says that his metal detector broke, and he asks SpongeBob if he can borrow his.
This is your next lesson. Be aggressive. Tell that guy to take a hike.
Do you want to take a hike with me?
Yeah. Now look what you've done. Tell that guy to go fall in the ditch.
Hey, go tuck in that ditch.
Wow, buried treasure. Thanks.
Did you see that, Plankton? That guy found some buried treasure.
SpongeBob, you'll never get it right.
Feeling defeated and like SpongeBob is hopeless, Plankton walks away and starts to pack his bags, saying that this is a waste of time. He says that SpongeBob just doesn't have what it takes to be a stand-up guy.
But what about airline food?
What?
Airline food, my gosh, what is up with that stuff? Thank you, good night. See, I can be a stand-up guy, see?
SpongeBob, you'll never get what you want. You'll always let people step all over you. You're just like stairs.
Wait, Plankton, give me another chance.
Okay, but this is your last chance. Look at all those beach hogs soaking up your sun rays.
SpongeBob runs over and he shakes out a towel, getting sand all over the place and in people's eyes. People all over the beach start to leave, and Plankton gets excited to see his vision finally coming into fruition. SpongeBob walks up to Plankton and they look over to see a long line over at the hot dog stand.
Assert yourself to the front.
I'll do better than that.
Let's go home.
SpongeBob, that was genius. Look at all those kite flyers blocking your view.
What?
Breaking your wind.
SpongeBob straight up pulls out his tooth and uses it like a boomerang to cut all of the kite flyer's lines. As he laughs maniacally, a volleyball ends up falling at his feet, and this happens.
Hey, SpongeBob, throw us the ball.
What do we do now?
Let's just go home, I guess.
Plankton, Plankton, did you see that? I was a regular alpha male.
SpongeBob looks around and Plankton is nowhere to be found. Then, all of a sudden, we hear an engine roar as Plankton comes up in a construction crane. SpongeBob confronts him, upset.
You didn't tell me everyone would leave.
Oops.
Mega Bucket! You used me for land development.
That wasn't nice.
Haven't you figured it out, SpongeBob? Nice guys finish last. Only aggressive people conquer the world.
Well, what about aggressively nice people?
SpongeBob starts reversing all of the bad stuff that he did. He regurgitates the hot dogs, gets the kites back, cleans a little girl's sandy ice cream, and he becomes a surfboard for a surfer whose board broke. Plankton panics as SpongeBob's kindness brings everyone back.
Your kindness is bringing everybody back! Get back! Wait! Ouch! No!
Plankton crawls up as SpongeBob says he's sorry about the chum bucket, but Plankton says that doesn't matter and that he just can't handle this much kindness in one sitting.
Need hatred.
Volleyball, anyone? Yeah! Servo! Ouch! Ouch!
Like I said in the beginning, this episode used to grind my gears when I was a kid just a little bit. Nowadays, not so much, if I'm being honest. It's a pretty good episode. If we take it from the top, I gotta start out with that opening pan, which, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I've seen 1,000 times. I feel like every episode that starts out at the Goo Lagoon usually starts out with pretty much the same exact pan. But I gotta say, I really did like the part where we see that bubbling puddle of sludge right next to the sign for the Goo Lagoon. That felt like a nice touch in my opinion. I remember seeing the show as a kid and being confused as to how the Goo Lagoon works. Like, how is it possible for them to have a body of water when they're literally inside of a body of water? That's like having air inside of air. That just doesn't make sense. The context of this makes sense though. The water at the Goo Lagoon is a thick sludge, so thick that it naturally sinks to the bottom of the ocean, forming what looks like a body of water to the fish. The muck separates from the rest of the ocean and settles to the bottom in a specific way that kind of mimics the properties of a nasty old lake. At least that's how my mind rationalizes it. It's another one of those things where I'm sure there's going to be like a ton of people in the comments like, duh, of course, it's just an old separated puddle, didn't everybody know that? But like, I'm slow to connect dots sometimes, okay? Don't make fun of me. This is another episode that just shows us how pure and innocent SpongeBob from season 1 was as well. That scene in the beginning when SpongeBob is sitting with Plankton on the bench is a great example of that. When SpongeBob finishes going to town on that ice cream cone, he agrees to go through assertiveness training with Plankton, and Plankton starts laughing maniacally, and naturally, SpongeBob joins in on the laughing, no idea why, other than just because Plankton was laughing. This just shows how innocent SpongeBob is. He doesn't even recognize evil laughing. Nothing funny was even said. Plankton was just doing the typical villain trope thing and laughing. SpongeBob is just oblivious on the other hand, so of course he joins in on the laughter innocently. More than anything, SpongeBob just wanted to get along with Plankton, make him feel better because he was crying, and he wanted Plankton to feel included. One thing I saw in this episode that was just kind of dumb in my opinion was the part where that guy doesn't even look and just kind of sits on top of SpongeBob on the bench. Plankton tells him to be assertive, but like, how was SpongeBob supposed to know what to do? He didn't even know the meaning of the word assertive yet, thinking that Plankton said insertive, as evidenced by him sticking his finger in that guy's pocket. Like, Plankton said he was going to teach SpongeBob how to be more assertive, but in all reality, he didn't really teach SpongeBob anything. He just kind of told SpongeBob to be assertive and was disappointed when SpongeBob didn't know what to do. Like, you gotta show someone how to do what you want them to do, not just tell them to do it when they literally don't even know how. You gotta give the pupil some direction, and Plankton clearly doesn't understand that. Another kind of weird thing I noticed was when SpongeBob confronted that eel who took his ice cream. Plankton basically threatened to ruin this guy's life, and he ran away crying after throwing the ice cream at SpongeBob. I can't help but wonder, is this really the same exact eel who took SpongeBob's ice cream? Like, when he did that, which mind you was incredibly rude, he seemed kind of abrasive and sneaky, deceptive, and inconsiderate. It was definitely something that only an asshole would do. It was definitely something that only an asshole would do, to put it bluntly. But like, you're gonna tell me that the same eel that had enough gall to do all that was reduced to tears by somebody literally just saying that they were gonna fill your every moment with pain and despair? Like, no disrespect to SpongeBob, but I feel like if a guy like SpongeBob made a threat like that to someone like the asshole who had the gall to just cut him in line with no cares given, then a fight would probably break out, started by the line-cutting asshole, of course. Hear me out, if you're gonna be a jerk going around and cutting people in line with no regard, then you know good and well that there's a chance that you might piss off the wrong person. Like, you can only walk over so many people before you walk all over somebody who's gonna stand up for themselves and try to challenge you. I don't know, I just feel like the original eel who had the nerve to cut in line and steal SpongeBob's ice cream wouldn't necessarily be fazed by an empty threat made by a sponge who's like 4 feet shorter than him, but who knows. Maybe he is sensitive, but by that logic, he should know how much it hurts to be cut in line and should stop doing that to other people. Moving on from there though, I gotta point out how obnoxious it was when SpongeBob was using the metal detector and that fish approached him. Like, first of all, if that was me, I'd be pissed because like, I'm in public doing something with headphones on for a reason. I don't want you to approach me, I'm busy, just like let me do my thing. But like, let alone asking me to stop doing the thing that I'm busy doing so that you can use my property to do the thing I'm doing instead? That would honestly just drive me insane. Like, if I'm out mowing my lawn, don't interrupt me halfway into my lawn and ask me if you can use my lawnmower to mow your lawn. Like, at least have the courtesy to let me finish what I'm doing first. On top of that though, this guy already broke his own metal detector. What makes you think that I'm about to let you use mine when you couldn't even take care of your own metal detector? If I was SpongeBob, I would have told that guy to go kick rocks or something. Honestly though, I'm a massive introvert, so there's that. One last thing I really wanted to cover is that scene at the very end where Plankton gets trampled. He makes this very specific noise, and I'm pretty sure you probably know the one I'm talking about. Now, I have no idea what part of Plankton's body was being stepped on, and honestly, I don't want to know. I remember noticing that part as a kid and just being so confused and not having a single clue what they were implying here. But yeah, that's a thing, I guess. I don't know, this episode wasn't bad by any means, but it's not the greatest of the season. Let's go with like a 7.5 and we'll keep this train on rolling ahead. Next up, as we round into the bottom half of this video, we're checking out the episode Fools in April. In the beginning, we see Gary sleeping peacefully, and he gets woken up by SpongeBob saying that he's gotta wake up because they're moving today.
We're gonna become peasants. No more food. Sorry, Gary. Peasants only eat mashed up clamshells. April Fools!
We see SpongeBob go to his kitchen for a drink fit for his extreme thirst. He pours like 100 glasses of lemonade and says that he can't wait to drink all of them as he pulls out a little mirror to tell himself April Fools before walking out of the house without so little as sipping on a single glass. Squidward notices SpongeBob walking past his house while laughing, and he starts to question why SpongeBob is so happy. Then, when he looks at the calendar and notices what day it is, he starts to panic. He reaches for the phone and he calls Mr. Krabs so that he can call in sick to work. Mr. Krabs tells him that there's someone there from the Barnacle Bay Art Museum and that he wants to honor Squidward as Artist of the Month.
I have arrived. What? What's so funny? Where's the art dealer?
You just missed him.
Yeah, but he told us to tell you.
Tell me what?
He told me to tell you April Fools.
Well, it's been nice working here. Thanks for everything, Mr. Krabs.
Squidward, wait!
SpongeBob promises no more jokes on Squidward today, and Squidward agrees not to quit, and they go on their merry way. We see the day pass as SpongeBob keeps playing jokes on people, and he stops as soon as Squidward comes anywhere near the situation.
Hey, what's that?
Oh, I didn't see anything. Hey, where'd that other guy go?
April Fools! I'm right here! counter!
Hey, that was pretty good.
What are you doing behind the counter?
We see SpongeBob just going ham on pranking people. In what I would consider to be the best scene of this episode, we see SpongeBob on the floor scrubbing when this fish asks him for a couple of ice cubes in his drink. SpongeBob comes back and the fish is drinking his drink while SpongeBob keeps secretly laughing at this guy.
April Fools!
What did you do to my drink?
I...
You what?
You asked for a couple of ice cubes in your drink, and I only put in one!
I guess that is pretty funny.
Squidward overhears SpongeBob's laughter, which just pisses him off. SpongeBob laughs so hard that his tongue falls off, and he's full-blown laughing into the intercom at the front register while Squidward is just straight up cramming napkins into his ear holes trying to drown out SpongeBob's laughter. Finally fed up with SpongeBob's pranks, he decides that he's going to show SpongeBob what a real prank is all about. We see Squidward spraying mustard on the ground in a trap, and he tells SpongeBob to go clean it up.
April Fools!
The trap comes to an end with SpongeBob getting flung into the ceiling. As he falls down, Squidward runs to catch him, and at the last second he catches him with a nearby garbage can filled with sludge.
April Fools, you little sausage! SpongeBob, I was just kidding. Come on. Come on, you guys know I was just kidding, right?
April Fools. Jerk.
Squidward looks around the restaurant and sees remnants of how awful his trap was. He feels bad, and his exact words are, "Why is it whenever I'm having fun, it's wrong?"
I guess this means I better tell SpongeBob I'm sorry. Huh? I guess this means I better apologize. This is gonna be tougher than I thought.
We see Squidward arrive at SpongeBob's house and knock on the door, but nobody answers. He gets hit by some dirt flung nearby, and we see a Krusty Krab hat peeking out from a nearby rock formation. Assuming it's SpongeBob, Squidward approaches to talk. He tries to muster out some sort of apology, but what comes out isn't all too stellar.
'Cause I'm about to tell you that I'm... What? Patrick! What are you doing here?
Digging.
Why are you wearing that hat?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, where's SpongeBob?
He's in the house. He's impressed.
With what?
I don't know, but it must have been pretty good to make him cry like that.
We see Squidward walk up to SpongeBob's door and try to get in, but SpongeBob reaches his arm under the door and takes the handle away.
You better let me in there. I don't want to have to use this.
What do you want?
SpongeBob, I just want to say that I'm sorry.
What?
I'm trying to say I'm...
What?
I'm just trying to say I'm...
After that utter failure, Squidward starts exploring more creative venues, of which he may apologize to SpongeBob. His first attempt, rather clever in my opinion, is to write a letter, put it in a bottle, and put a cork in it to send to SpongeBob.
Well, aren't you gonna open it?
I can't. I don't have a bottle opener.
Oh!
We then see Squidward take a couple of cans and attach them with a string. He gives one to SpongeBob, and he gets in his car and drives down the road to talk to him that way. But the sound of Patrick sitting on his rock and flossing with the line is drowning out everything that he's saying. Squidward ends up getting fed up and decides that he's just gonna rip off the Band-Aid and walk up to SpongeBob and say it.
Is that I am... sorry. There you go.
But I couldn't
I
hear.
don't care. I said it. My conscience is clear.
As Squidward walks away, seemingly guilt-free, he ends up seeing visions of Patrick talking about SpongeBob crying, the fish who said April Fools, jerk, and even his own mother telling him that he stinks. Being plagued by these visions, he runs back to SpongeBob.
I'm sorry, I admit it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. In fact, SpongeBob, I like you. I like living next door. I like hearing your foghorn alarm in the morning and your high-pitched giggling at night. I also like Gary, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and all the other people I'm forced to be in contact with. And
Squidward, is all that true?
yes, SpongeBob. Yes, it's all true. But you have to promise not to tell anybody.
I promise.
Really?
The episode ends with Squidward going crazy and running away laughing crazily, saying April Fools over and over again, claiming that he fooled everyone. This episode is definitely an interesting one to reflect upon nowadays. I gotta say, that gag in the beginning where SpongeBob pranks Gary and makes him cry just made me feel so bad. I love Gary and I hated seeing him cry. It made me sad that SpongeBob had Gary fully convinced that they were gonna live a new life as peasants and that they were gonna give up food. After that though, when SpongeBob poured the 100+ glasses of lemonade, I was in stitches. That's like the most SpongeBob thing ever. I'm just gonna pull the most inconvenient prank I can possibly think of on myself. Of course, the icing on the cake of that whole situation being that SpongeBob didn't even take a single sip of any of those glasses. He wasn't even thirsty, that was just full-blown commitment to the gag for the sake of pranking himself. SpongeBob is an interesting character, and specifically Season 1 SpongeBob has such an interesting logic process that can be hilarious to follow if you pay close enough attention to it. Fast forwarding from there, when we see SpongeBob leave for work and Squidward starts to panic and call in sick to work, the prank that they played on him was just so legendary. It was a perfect prank in my opinion because it was next level cruel, but on that same note, only to a certain extent. Hear me out here. It was cruel. We all know that Squidward's biggest dream is to have his art blow up and that he can be world famous, and for them to pretend that he was actually getting his shot finally was pretty mean. However, in the end, though that definitely did crush Squidward's spirit and hurt his feelings, only SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs were involved. He didn't get publicly humiliated or anything like that. It was just a simple prank, and man, Squidward's reaction was just over the top. He straight up quit right then and there on the spot. He just put down his hat and said it was nice knowing them. Squidward is just such a drama queen sometimes, and it's hilarious. I just have to point out how absolutely over the top the joke Squidward pulled on SpongeBob was, especially in comparison to the joke that SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs pulled on him. That joke resulted in SpongeBob getting covered in flour, completely pummeled and smacked multiple times, dragged through some guy's butt, and crammed into a garbage can that had green sludge inside of it, all in front of an entire restaurant full of people. Everyone saw that happen, and of course, cherry on top, SpongeBob ended up crying in front of everybody. At least when SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs pranked Squidward, it stayed between them, but Squidward went straight to the level of public ridicule. It was just really sad to see how it affected SpongeBob. He didn't really deserve that, no matter how annoying Squidward thought he was being. I do have to bring up that weird thing that was happening every time that Squidward tried to say sorry. He kept doing weird facial expressions, or his face would completely transform, and honestly, how messed up is it that Squidward is literally unable to apologize? He is straight up incapable of ever even saying those two words together. I'm sure throughout the rest of the series this wouldn't persist. I have to imagine somewhere over these last few decades Squidward has said the words "I'm sorry" together at some point, but for this specific episode, it's pretty messed up. His brain straight up will not allow his lips to make the movements required to say it. Of course, he did end up saying it, but you saw how he was full-blown transforming into a donkey and hee-hawing when he tried to say he was sorry. It just wouldn't work. What's even more messed up than that though is how much this is kind of a representation of real life to a degree. There are so many people out there like Squidward who are just straight up narcissists and can't ever say they're sorry for anything. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. Nobody wants to be a Squidward. Honestly, at one point, Squidward straight up says,
Why is it whenever I'm having fun, it's wrong?
Like, analyze that for yourself, Squidward. That statement right there says a lot more about you than it does about anybody else around you. Like, reassess your life, my guy. Moving on from there though, on a different note, there's a few things on a more positive side that I wanted to touch on. That part where Squidward is attempting to apologize and he writes a message in a bottle and he passes it to SpongeBob, who just kind of stands there with it, had me dying. The way he innocently says that he can't open it because he doesn't have a bottle opener was everything. Like, he was just gonna stand there and hold it and not say anything until Squidward questioned him. It had me straight up laughing. You know good and well that SpongeBob could have just smashed that bottle open on the ground and got the paper out that way, but he's such a good person that he's just gonna stand there oh well, instead. Just another testament to how good of a person SpongeBob is. He doesn't even want to break glass. One weird thing that I need to point out is at that point where Squidward makes the cans connected by a piece of string so that he can talk to SpongeBob through it. We see Squidward get in his car and drive off into the distance, and I just have to stop and question, when did Squidward get a car? And second of all, why isn't it like a normal boat? I mean, I guess technically, this is a normal boat, but it's very different from literally every other boat that we've seen around Bikini Bottom. This one is shaped like a canoe and is naturally a lot more narrow than the other boats that we've seen in this show. I know that's random, but it's just a minor inconsistency that I couldn't let slide. One random thing in here that really just kind of rubbed me the wrong way was during, again, that scene where they're talking with the cans and the string. Patrick is on top of his house and straight up flossing with the string that they're attempting to communicate with. Just the sound of him doing that was like nails on a chalkboard for me, and the look on his face and the way that they drew his teeth is just ick. Everything about that was just gross in my opinion. I'm not gonna lie, this episode was not my favorite, but if there's anything we were able to gather from it, it would be that Squidward does in fact have a conscience. He did SpongeBob wrong, and as a result, his conscience was racked with guilt, as we saw when he was getting visions of people criticizing him for what he did to SpongeBob. We know Squidward is a callous jerk, which he was in this episode, but it definitely did confirm the fact that he does have a conscience and is capable of feeling genuine guilt. I'm gonna go ahead and give this episode a solid 7.5 out of 10, and we're gonna move on. This next episode is one that I've been really excited to look back on for a while now, and I'm so hyped to finally be able to watch it again. We're looking at the episode called Neptune's Spatula. The beginning of this episode sees SpongeBob and Patrick playing tourist at the Fry Cook Museum. We see them oohing and awing at everything until they come upon the golden spatula. Legend has it that many have tried to pull the spatula from the ancient Greece, but all have failed. Only a fry cook worthy of King Neptune himself can wield the golden spatula.
Take a picture of me and the spatula. Okay, I'm ready.
Excuse me, do you know where the menu section is?
The menu section? That's easy. It's over that way. Uh-oh.
Holy smokes! Hey, the light changed.
A thunderstorm is conjured indoors, and we see lightning strike inside as a gateway opens up to Atlantis, and we see none other than King Neptune come through.
Who has freed the spatula from the grease?
I did, Mr. Neptune, sir. SpongeBob SquarePants.
A fine jest, boy. You are but a lowly yellow sponge, puny, insignificant, a commoner. Therefore you could never be fry cooked to a god, and this is why it is funny. Now step aside while I seek out the true fry cook.
We see King Neptune going around and looking when he comes upon the hot dog stand guy. He says that he must be the one who pulled the spatula, but when the hot dog stand guy tells him that SpongeBob pulled the spatula out, King Neptune ends up crushing his hot dog stand in laughter.
You there, crustacean?
Who, me?
You have the physique of Atlas.
Thanks. I work out.
Make poses with me.
Okay.
Why, Slam? You pulled the spatula from the grease.
Nope, that was SpongeBob.
King Neptune is just exceedingly angry that anyone would have the audacity to even insinuate that a creature like SpongeBob would have what it takes to be the royal fry cook. He ends up confronting Patrick about it and insisting that Patrick show him proof that SpongeBob pulled the spatula, and even though Patrick literally has a picture from when it happened, King Neptune still wants to hear nothing of it. He explains that there's more to being the royal fry cook than just being able to cook a burger.
There are certain qualities that a royal fry cook must have.
Like?
The royal fry cook must be, left-handed.
Actually, I've got 2.
Also, the royal fry cook wears red underwear. No, blue. His big toes are, he has 6.
He is the new royal fry cook, and you...
After King Neptune hurts Patrick, SpongeBob calls him a bully and a liar. King Neptune decides that he's going to prove SpongeBob's worthlessness with a challenge.
Bring it on! SpongeBob can handle it! Ouch!
Your friend's arrogance will cost you dearly. There will be 2 challenges.
Only 2? What are 2 challenges to someone like SpongeBob?
3 challenges!
3? 3 challenges are nothing. Might as well be 500 challenges.
Enough!
They decide to settle on one challenge: King Neptune versus SpongeBob in the ultimate cook-off. SpongeBob agrees as long as King Neptune fixes Patrick. King Neptune explains that if SpongeBob meets the requirements of the challenge, he will reap great rewards.
Behold! Whoopsie. Now behold, my beloved home of Atlantis. You will reside here in this glorious place, cook only for me, and be a god.
That sounds pretty good.
But if you should not succeed, you must give up fry cooking forever. What do you say?
I'm ready.
We cut on over to the Poseidome, where SpongeBob and King Neptune are getting ready to battle, and first to 1,000 patties wins. We see SpongeBob in his corner telling Patrick that he's worried and that he doesn't think that he's fit to cook in Atlantis. After a little pep talk, we hear the bell ring and they get to cooking. As SpongeBob is building a little fire with sticks and rocks, King Neptune is flipping hundreds of patties at a time on massive grills. Within minutes, King Neptune has hundreds of patties raining from the sky. Meanwhile,
Once upon a time... Perfect.
I win! Loser!
King Neptune declares free patties for everyone, and he throws everyone in the crowd a patty. They all take a bite, and simultaneously, everyone starts spitting them out and talking about how disgusting they are. They all tell King Neptune to take a bite, but after smelling it, even he won't try the patties he made.
Okay, mine's no good. But what makes you think his will be any better? Give me that! Why, it tastes so good. I think I'd like to try it a second time.
So, what do you think?
Yours is superior.
King Neptune decides to concede and let SpongeBob have the win because his patty is so incredibly good. SpongeBob and Patrick start to celebrate that they get to go to Atlantis, but then King Neptune says that Patrick doesn't get to come with, nor do any of SpongeBob's friends.
I don't wanna go!
It's too late now. I can't live without your burgers. You're going to be a god and like it. Maybe we do have a problem.
Wait, Neptune! I have another idea.
We cut on over to the Krusty Krab, where we see Patrick, with his face still on his butt, as he walks up and tries to order. Meanwhile, we hear some sort of commotion going on in the kitchen.
The accursed stove has burnt my finger. Feel thine own wrath, stove!
What did I tell you about using your powers, trainee?
Perfect patties are made with love, not magic.
I feel like at this point you know it's a good episode when you know you love the episode, but you also hate it at the same time for one specific character, and in this case that character is definitely King Neptune. Honestly, I enjoy this episode. I enjoy the whole sequence with the museum, and the cook-off was just incredible, but I can't handle how much of a massive tool King Neptune really is. I like how they wrote his character though, because you're supposed to hate him. I will say though, it is frustrating to me that this King Neptune and the King Neptune we see in the first SpongeBob movie are two completely different King Neptunes. This guy is far different from that one in many ways, and I can't help but question why they made that decision, but it is what it is, I guess. One thing that I connected the dots on when watching this episode this time was the golden spatula. I recently played through SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated on the Switch, and the main thing that you collect in that game is golden spatulas. I've been playing that game and watching the show since I was a little kid, and I never correlated this episode to the golden spatulas that you collect in that game. It's not any huge revelation or anything super notable, but it was just something that I finally connected the dots on all these years later. Battle for Bikini Bottom was a fantastic game, but I gotta stop and give a shout out to the PS2 game SpongeBob SquarePants Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. That game is literally the all-time greatest SpongeBob SquarePants game that I've ever played in my life. 10 out of 10 recommend. Just had to shout it out on the note of SpongeBob SquarePants video games. This episode is one that I really look back on and I can appreciate for the message behind it. There's a point in this episode where King Neptune refers to SpongeBob as a puny, insignificant commoner in reference to the fact that he could never be the royal fry cook, and honestly, that just drove me absolutely nuts. First of all, SpongeBob's physical appearance is in no way, shape, or form a representation of how good of a fry cook he is. Fry cooks come in all different shapes and sizes, and everyone in Bikini Bottom knows that SpongeBob is literally the best fry cook in town. Honestly, why does the royal fry cook need to be large and muscular anyways? Just because King Neptune is? On that note, does he hold a ridiculous fitness standard for everyone else in his kingdom? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me the way that he used magic to turn SpongeBob buff in the end. On that note, can we just take a second to look at him? SpongeBob with large muscles just doesn't look right. King Neptune turned him into the literal Muscle Bob buff pants, and it just doesn't feel right, to be honest. Ultimately though, the moral of the story was that you can't judge a book by its cover. King Neptune did, and ended up being completely wrong about SpongeBob. Speaking of King Neptune though, it was funny to see just how cowardly he ended up being in the end. When he made all of those Krabby Patties, he was a crowd favorite, but then when everyone tried them and thought they were disgusting, they got really angry at him, and honestly, it seemed like he was afraid of the audience a little bit. King Neptune was so cowardly that he wouldn't even take a bite of the disgusting burger that he made himself. I don't know, I get why he was cowardly in these moments, but for someone who's supposed to be an almighty god who is all powerful and not to be messed with, he sure seemed pretty cowardly. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a mere mortal. The last thing I wanted to bring up here was Patrick. One thing that he was really good at all the way back in season 1 was not being able to keep his mouth shut. I'm sure that persisted throughout the whole series, even today, but when King Neptune was talking about the challenges, Patrick just kept smack-talking him and saying that SpongeBob could handle 500 challenges. It was honestly just ridiculous, and what was originally going to be one challenge turned out to be 2, then turned out to be 3, then turned out to be back 1 again, all because Patrick just couldn't keep his mouth shut and kept smack-talking King Neptune. It was funny, I'll admit that much. Though it's usually to the detriment of himself or someone else, it's usually hilarious when Patrick just keeps egging on. All in all, this is a great episode. I've honestly struggled with this one as far as thinking about a rating goes, but I'm just gonna do it and go for a 10. It's a really memorable and classic episode, and it really does a great job of capturing that season 1 SpongeBob feel, which I genuinely appreciate. I honestly think of this one as a corner staple of season 1. It was crucial to us as viewers for developing our understanding of just how good of a fry cook that SpongeBob is, and I appreciate this episode for that. Moving on, our next episode is a super iconic one in my opinion. We're looking at the episode called Hooky. Not gonna lie, that title card music feels a little bit out of place for this episode, but whatever. This episode starts out with some boats above Bikini Bottom with fishermen in them. We cut on over to the Krusty Krab where SpongeBob is in the middle of some cleaning when this happens.
They're back! They're back, I tell you! I saw them with my own eyes!
Oh, this is very good.
The hooks! The hooks!
How about a mint?
The hooks! The hooks!
Can you make that to go?
You don't know how lucky you are.
Mr. Krabs tries to tell Squidward about the hooks, but he's having nothing of it, claiming that he has to do his wastebasket inspection. Just then, SpongeBob comes up to talk to Mr. Krabs.
They dangle down and draw you close with their pleasing shapes and their beguiling colors. And just when you think you've found the land of milk and honey, they grab you by the britches and haul you way up high. Then higher and higher and higher until you're hauled up to the surface, flopping and gasping for breath. And then they cook you, and then they eat you, or worse.
What could be worse than that?
Gift shops.
SpongeBob is seemingly the only person in the Krusty Krab who heeds Mr. Krabs' warning. We cut on over to the kitchen where SpongeBob is cooking up some patties. Patrick appears in the window saying that the carnival is in town and that they need to go. SpongeBob says that he can't go because he has to work, but Patrick says that he should just take a break and then come back. And as soon as you know it, they're on their way to the carnival.
The carnival is back in town.
Where is everybody?
I don't know. There was one kid here earlier.
Doesn't look like any carnival I ever... Oh, excuse me. Oh! Stop, Patrick! Don't touch it! This isn't the carnival, Patrick. Those are hooks. Mr. Krabs says they're really dangerous.
I sense no danger here.
Patrick says that, of course, they can't be dangerous because they're covered with free cheese. We see Patrick playing with the hooks and taking food from them without really worrying at all.
Does this look dangerous?
Ah! Patrick, don't!
Lighten up, will ya? Or do I have to eat all this cheese by myself?
Patrick! Help! Oh, Patrick, help! Oh, Patrick, come back! Oh, my best friend! Patrick, you're alive!
Patrick says that he had a blast and that SpongeBob should try it. Patrick tells him that he just needs to jump off before he gets too high up. Patrick convinces SpongeBob to jump on and ride it like a horsey, and we see a fisherman reeling his line. At the last second, the two jump off and they fall down slowly to the bottom. Meanwhile, at the Krusty Krab...
My sandwich tastes like a fried boot.
My sandwich is a fried boot. Hurry it up, will ya? We're hungry over here, look at us.
Squidward does his best to cook the food, but the crowd just gets more and more angry at him. Mr. Krabs comes in and asks what's going on, and Squidward tells him that it's a feeding frenzy and SpongeBob's not back from his break yet.
What?
I thought you said SpongeBob was taking a break. No one's taken a break at the Krusty Krab since the chum famine of '59. Now, what were you saying?
He took a break.
Mr. Krabs walks out of the front door saying that he's gonna find SpongeBob and that his nose can smell laziness over 50 feet away. Mr. Krabs keeps walking until he comes upon SpongeBob and Patrick and finds them playing with the hooks. He watches them get pulled away.
Boys! I wasn't quick enough. They're gone! Oh, if I could only hold him in my arms again. I'd throttle him. What did I tell you about those hooks, boy?
Mr. Krabs strikes major fear into their hearts as he says that if they get caught by the hooks, they'll get vacuum packed into a can of tuna with nothing to look forward to except for the smell of mayonnaise. The boys apologize.
I need a sailor's promise. Repeat after me. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Near the hooks, I'll never go.
Yo-ho, yo-ho. Near the hooks, we'll never go.
Mother of pearl! Fire on the poop deck!
Ah! Mother of pearl! Fire on the poop deck!
We cut to the next day where we see SpongeBob leave his house after telling Gary that he's gonna prove to Mr. Krabs that he's loyal. As he runs past Patrick's house, Patrick comes out saying that he's not going to work today because he's gonna play hooky.
But Patrick, we promised.
Well, I had my fingers crossed.
You don't have any fingers, Patrick.
Well, that Mr. Krabs is just a big dummy. We played on those hooks all day long, and nothing happened to us.
But Mr. Krabs said...
Look, SpongeBob, are you gonna listen to a big dummy, or are you gonna listen to me?
Patrick runs off to have fun, and SpongeBob watches, thinking about how bad he wants to just stay and play, but instead he leaves to go to work.
Oh no! Mr. Krabs told me all about you. You are a liar! A deceiver! I'll never fall for your tricks again! Never! Is this seat taken? Whew, glad I got that out of my system. Oh! I'm hooked!
SpongeBob starts panicking and crying, saying that he's hooked. He runs for the Krusty Krab, begging for Mr. Krabs to help. He shows up and tries to talk to Mr. Krabs discreetly about his problem, but it doesn't go quite as planned, and he ends up exposing the truth to all of the people in the Krusty Krab, including Pearl and all of her friends. He asks Mr. Krabs what to do, and he says that there's only one thing that they can do about it.
Oh no, Mr. Krabs. I can't take off my pants. Not in front of all these girls. Oh, okay, I'm taking them off. I'm taking them off. There.
Lad.
Oh no. Oh no, 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 Mr. Krabs. I can't do it. Anything but that.
I understand. You were a good little fry cook, SpongeBob.
Mr. Krabs says that they'll miss him and that they'll find another fry cook, hopefully one that'll listen to old Mr. Krabs. Just then, the line gets pulled tighter and tighter until SpongeBob starts getting pulled away. He ends up holding onto the Krusty Krab sign until his underwear get ripped off and he gets launched into the Krusty Krab door, completely nude.
Mr. Squidward, that was some fine angling. Do you think the lad has learned his lesson?
Oh, I think he'll remember this for a long time. No, I will.
Oh, does somebody have a can opener?
Like I said in the beginning, this episode is just so iconic. The hooks were definitely a statement that stuck in my head for a long time when I was a kid. I loved that Patrick, being the simpleton that he is, mistook the hooks for a carnival and was just super excited to go play with them. It's interesting to me how the show approached topics like this. With the creator of the show being a marine science educator, he would approach topics in the show from a scientific standpoint and from different angles that a lot of people wouldn't consider, and this is one that I truly appreciate. I never really wondered what fishing is like from the fish's perspective, but it really does make for an interesting topic for this show to cover. Seeing this as a kid, Patrick's vision of what it was definitely played a part in influencing my view on it. I remember seeing this when I was a kid and hearing Patrick call it the carnival and then him going there and seeing how much fun that he had made it really look like it was actually cool with all the colorful lures and stuff that we see all over the area. But in all reality, it's kind of messed up. Watching this as an adult, I just see all sorts of pointy, sharp instruments that are literally designed to more than likely lead these fish to death. What's interesting to me though is Patrick and SpongeBob thought the hooks were fun, Mr. Krabs thought the hooks were terrifying, but what about everyone else? They seemed to just kind of ignore Mr. Krabs when he was warning them about the hooks. It leaves me wondering, do they all already know about the hooks and that they're a threat? Or is everyone just oblivious and not care? Throughout this episode, we don't really see anyone other than our core characters comment on the hooks, so there's not really any way for us to know. I will admit I am super curious though. I personally really loved Mr. Krabs' tactic of scaring the boys away from the hooks. He told SpongeBob all about the cans of tuna and the mayonnaise, and even worse if you end up being a knick-knack for sale at the gift shop. It's interesting to see what kind of fears these fish have in comparison to our normal human fears up here on land. I can't help but wonder, how does Mr. Krabs know all this? If any fish who ends up getting caught by the hooks ends up being eaten or stuffed into a tuna can or sold in a gift shop, how would Mr. Krabs know that and have been able to get the information? Like, if no fish who was gotten by the hooks has survived and lived to tell the story, then how would Mr. Krabs know and be able to warn them? That's another interesting topic that I always pondered as a kid, simply due to the fact that, like, most people probably chalk him having that info up to, like, old people knowledge. Like how most old people are wise and have some sort of knowledge or life tips that they can share with you. But, like, they all had to have gotten that info from someone somewhere along the lines. I just can't help but wonder where Mr. Krabs got that information. Regardless though, this is a really good episode. I enjoyed it as a kid, and it still holds up all these years later in my opinion. I'm gonna give it a solid 9, and we're gonna jump right on to the next episode. Here we are, all this time later, and we're finally here. The final segment of Season 1 of SpongeBob, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2. This episode begins on a Saturday morning with SpongeBob at home.
SpongeBob is watching his favorite Saturday morning show, The Adventures of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, enjoying a bowl of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy bland cereal, and wearing the official Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy breakfast biters.
Mermaid Man, fleet and forceful, by the power of Neptune, aided by his young ward.
Instead of actually airing an episode, we jump right into the fish announcer saying that he has the results of a contest that they're holding in which the winner will get an exclusive collector's item from the show.
And the winner is SpongeBob SquarePants.
Aw, I worked forever on those life-size Krabby Patty mannequins of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
For these life-size Krabby Patty mannequins of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
Hey, SpongeBob SquarePants stole my idea.
What's that? Oh. It appears I've made a slight error in pronunciation. The real name of the winner is SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob stands there shaking in awe that he won, wondering when his prize will get here, but before he can finish that thought, he turns around and the delivery boy is right behind him. SpongeBob rips open the package to find the conch signal from the TV show used to summon Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy in case of an emergency. SpongeBob naturally blows into it to check if it still works.
Signal to the invisible boatmobile.
Mermaid Man.
Yes, Barnacle Boy?
We're not in the invisible boatmobile, are we?
Nope.
After they search the area down there and find the invisible boatmobile, they race to SpongeBob's house and burst through the side of SpongeBob's home and through his door. SpongeBob approaches them, and Barnacle Boy is not all too happy to see SpongeBob again. When they find out that SpongeBob is now the holder of the conch signal, they are upset with him to find out that he blew it without there being any danger. They warn SpongeBob and tell him that you can only blow it when there's trouble, or else there's gonna be trouble. The two leave, and SpongeBob says that they won't be hearing from him unless there's a big emergency. That night, we see the two of them trying to shower when the conch signal blows again. They storm into action, and this happens.
Help. Can't. Open mayonnaise.
What? I come down here in my underwear to open a jar of mayonnaise? But nothing. We can't go around socializing. We have to be prepared for emergencies.
Barnacle Boy, think about it. Emergencies don't come around as often as they used to.
All right, okay. You can blow the conch every once in a while. Just give us something to do when we show up. Yay!
As you would expect, armed with that blessing, SpongeBob starts blowing the conch signal all the time for the most trivial things, even in the middle of the night. It gets to the point where Barnacle Boy ends up taking away the conch signal because he's blowing it just way too much. SpongeBob starts to cry and says that he was just doing it because they're his heroes. Barnacle Boy attempts to destroy the conch with his sulfur vision, but he fails and says that he'll just destroy it when he gets home.
And as for you...
Barnacle Boy, don't squash his enthusiasm. After all, he could be the hero of tomorrow, or the villain. Besides, I remember another young whippersnapper who wanted to be a superhero.
You don't even remember breakfast, you old coot.
Mermaid Man offers to let SpongeBob spend the rest of the day on patrol to make him feel better, and we see the three of them on the invisible boatmobile together when SpongeBob asks to drive.
What do you know about driving the invisible boatmobile?
Tons! Like the windshield wipers are right here.
Don't touch that button, it's the... Origami button.
The day continues, and we see mostly mishap going on as SpongeBob causes the heroes to fall off of a skyscraper and eventually ends up harassing and trying to arrest an innocent old man who is a retired supervillain. We cut over to a diner where SpongeBob is having some lunch with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. SpongeBob says that he's having a ton of fun and he asks what they're going to do tomorrow.
Why don't you take this nickel and go over there and see if our theme song is on the jukebox?
Okay.
You know, for a pain in the neck, he's a pretty nice kid.
Let's ditch him.
Right behind you.
The two heroes are trying to escape in the invisible boatmobile when their arch nemesis, the Dirty Bubble, shows up and traps them. SpongeBob comes up and the Dirty Bubble tells him to just give up because he has them trapped.
You don't understand. You're my most favorite supervillain. Can I have your autograph?
Oh no! Oh no, you fools! Stay back! The point! Watch the point now!
You saved us, son!
Yeah, you're a hero!
With Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy saved, the episode comes to an end with the three of them riding off into the distance in the invisible boatmobile. This episode is another one that I appreciate for the simple fact that we got two different Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes in one season. Personally, I enjoy the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes so much. I really enjoy all things comic related and superheroes, so they're right up my alley. I can honestly appreciate SpongeBob's devotion as a fan. The fact that he sunk hours into making life-size Krabby Patty mannequins of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy for that contest was just insane. Like, no wonder he won. That's by far the most off-the-wall insane entry they've ever gotten, I'm sure. But like, I can't help but wonder how SpongeBob entered them. Did he just make them and like take pictures and then send them the pictures? Or did he like physically mail them the Krabby Patty mannequins? If he did, like, what are the logistics of that? How could he have possibly mailed them together as one unit? I don't want to overthink it, but honestly, that just doesn't seem all too feasible. Now, I do have to say, I really appreciate the dynamic between Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and SpongeBob. Like, the back and forth that they have is really interesting to me. Obviously, Barnacle Boy is the jerk in this exchange. He's the bitter one who just wants to be left alone and doesn't want anyone bothering him for anything. Meanwhile, Mermaid Man seems to be the cool one. Like, in this episode, we see Barnacle Boy being the disciplinarian and getting angry at SpongeBob. Meanwhile, Mermaid Man is the one winking at SpongeBob and being super cool towards him. In all reality though, Mermaid Man did end up kind of being a wolf in sheep's clothing. It comes to the point where Barnacle Boy brings up the idea of ditching SpongeBob and Mermaid Man is all in for it. Honestly, that was low and made me lose a little bit of respect for Mermaid Man, but honestly, I kind of can't blame him. SpongeBob can be a bit much, and at this point he's talking about hanging out with them tomorrow too, which does seem a bit excessive to me, not gonna lie. One thing I really appreciate about the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes is the villains that they end up facing off against or encountering in their adventures. In this episode, we get to see the elderly fish who used to be the atomic flounder once upon a time. We also get to see the Dirty Bubble, who's one of the most notorious of their enemies. Another villain I definitely have to shout out is Man Ray. He didn't appear in this episode, but I do have to give it up for him. He's a great villain, for sure. I do have to admit, it is kind of messed up that this TV show would have a contest for a chance to win the conch signal, but they wouldn't advise Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Like, they're the ones who are trained to and expected to respond to this call, and you're not even going to tell them when you're giving it to someone else? That's just kind of messed up. Like, what if that got into the wrong hands? What if the contest participant was actually like the Dirty Bubble and he lured Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy into a trap just because he was able to get that conch signal from the contest? I mean, in all reality, we know that Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy would win that fight easily, as they have been doing for decades now, but regardless, it does seem a little bit irresponsible for them to just give that thing away in a contest for kids. One last thing that I really just have to bring up is SpongeBob's superhero outfit. When he's hanging out with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, we see him rocking basically an eye mask, underwear, and some shoes, and that's about it. His outfit is one that doesn't really scream fearsome superhero that all the bad guys should fear, but it's definitely a statement piece, that's for sure. I just thought it was kind of hilarious that of all things, that's what he decided to wear. Nevertheless, this was a great episode. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are great characters, and they have an interesting dynamic with SpongeBob that seems to evolve as the episodes go by. I won't lie to you, maybe it's the emotions of this being the final rating of the final episode of the first season, but I just have to give this one a straight 10. It's a nostalgic episode that I feel does an excellent job of putting a nice bookend on season 1 for the most part. Looking back and reflecting on the entirety of season 1 of SpongeBob, I can say that without a doubt, it's been a great time. I've really enjoyed making these videos. I make a lot of content that focuses on the dark side of these shows and all the scandals and scary aspects, and this series has been an amazing change of pace for me. It feels really good to just look back on an entire season of a show with some beautiful rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. These videos were just the opportunity I've always wanted to just gush about how amazing I think this season of SpongeBob was. There were so many iconic episodes that we've covered along the way, and I can say that I'll always hold this season of SpongeBob close to my heart. It defines a good portion of what made my early childhood so enjoyable, and I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to journey down this path together. I can say that, for sure, I'm gonna hold this portion of time that I spent working on these videos in my memories till the day I pass. And I'm gonna look back on this portion of my life really fondly because I've genuinely enjoyed making this series of videos, and I hope that I get to make more of them in the future. But again, I have to pose the question, do you want to see me do season 2 next? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and maybe share it with a friend. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.